Hey everybody, this is Trying to Live here playing some Kerbal Space Program. As you may have known or may not have known, version 0.15 has just come out. It is chock full of cool new updates, including a new moon. We already have a video out getting us started on a basic rough method of getting out there. Hopefully we'll get something a little cleaner, a little cooler later on. But in the meantime, we're actually going to talk about something else. We're going to talk about space planes, and that's one of the biggest updates. Most of the parts and things like that are related to space planes. So we're going to look into some of the parts today, and then we're going to make some cool ships and show you how to fly them, some tips and tricks and things like that. So let's get started. Alright, we're in the space plane hangar now. You've got the choose the command module screen when you first join up. There's four basic ones for space planes. I generally use one of two, which is the Cinder 2. The reason why is this one, well, it doesn't look like a cool space plane, so I'm not going to use it. I could, but I'm not. And this one doesn't have a place for the cool SAS to sit on in front there, so I don't use that either. And so what's the difference between these two right here? Well, this one right here is smaller and this one's larger. For example, there's tanks that go well with this one, like that. Looks great. And there's tanks that don't go well with it, like that. And alternatively, those larger tanks look kind of silly, and the smaller tanks look pretty cool. Not too bad. The parts now on this here, we'll turn our attention over here. They're mostly divided up well. Your new things that you're going to look for is you got some tanks here that are related to the new the space planes. These do not hold as much as this engine right here, or this fuel tank, not engines, fuel tank. These tanks don't hold as much as this tank right here because they are lighter and these engines do not burn fuel as quickly. These engines burn fuel ridiculously quick. If you were to use these tanks and a rocket engine, you would just be blown away and you'd be like, wow, there's no fuel and we're not going anywhere. And the same token, if you decided to make a space plane using one of these or a few of these, you might find that it's a little heavy to take off. You may not find that it's a little heavy, but there's a significant amount more fuel. So you can see here there's a capacity of 500 here and a capacity of 150 here. So there's a huge difference. There, and so they have very different purposes. Right now, the two fuels are interchangeable. Essentially, there's one fuel type works for rockets and air-breathing engines. In the future, this will be changed. In fact, in the future, you can pretty much expect that all of these parts will be changed in some way or another. I talked to C7, and he says he actually hates the parts and just because they don't match. If you start messing with them, you'll realize they don't match, and that he's going to replace them all in the future. And there's obviously going to be so many game changes in the future and things like that. And so don't. If you're watching this and version 0.16's out, don't. None of this stuff probably even matters anymore. It may still. If you're watching this many months in the future when the full version of the game comes out, you're like, what is this? What kind of archaic thing is going on here? Anyways, so here's the propulsion section. You got two jet engines, two air-breathing engines. This one's useless at this point. This one is the real deal. This one just uses fuel a little slower, but you can't go as high, you can't go as fast. There's no reason to use it. Alright, command and control. This gives you your SAS units. You got your advanced SAS, your original SAS, and your Avionics SAS, as well as some control surfaces, a couple canards, like an aileron, elevator, whatever you want to call it, a winglet that does stuff, as well as the new RCS unit that kind of goes wherever. You see a little tiny thing right there. Gives you a little point RCS unit. I haven't messed around with that too much yet. And of course your original SAS units. Here we have our structural aerodynamic. Most of the stuff in here don't do anything except for either provide lift and act as an attaching point or a decoupler point. Of course, you've got things like your hard point, which is just a kind of a small place where you can stack on a fuel tank or something like that. A new decoupler, which is designed more for planes, it seems. Of course, you got the standard decoupler. There is a few things like this tail fin here, as well as this winglet, which actually should be over here in the command and control point, which would actually make things really nice because then everything would fit on one page. But mostly everything here either does something or doesn't do anything. It provides lift, it attaches, it does fuel, or doesn't do anything. For example, this engine nacelle? I don't know how you pronounce that. I've actually heard the word out loud before. I've just read it. A nacelle, it seems like how you should pronounce it, is a covering over an engine. So it's kind of like a plasticky shroud or metal or carbon fiber, aluminum, whatever shroud. It actually doesn't do anything. In this game, it kind of hints towards the future of the game, where intakes, engines, and exhausts will be interchangeable, creating kind of like hybrid engines, however you please. However, right now, this is the engine. You can place it anywhere as long as it's got fuel. It will work. It doesn't need an intake or anything else. It just assumes that it has an intake, which is fine for what's going on right now. However, in the future, please note that this will change. So if you're seeing this in the future, you know, and it's like 2013, just disregard this video. Stop watching and go watch another video from the future and say hello to future me. Finally, you got some utility and scientific, which is just kind of some landing stuff. And then these two don't do anything. So we've got a quick overview of the parts here, and we're going to go ahead and make ourselves a couple space planes and do some different things with this. Have some fun, crash, whatever. Alright, you ready? Alright, let's get started. Okay, I've already taken the liberty of kind of getting started here a little bit. We're going to add a little kind of adapter engine-y thing here. Put a jet engine on the back. We got a pretty good start here. We're going to go ahead and toss a wing on there. Oh, we got to set that symmetry tool to mirror. There we go. We get that? Alright, we're going to go ahead and do what's called a dihedral, which is actually to point the wings up. And what that's going to do is it's going to help stabilize our ship. It doesn't stabilize the ship as much as it would in real life. However, in the game it does add stabilization, which is pretty handy. But first, we're going to have to make these straight because we got to do a little kind of a cool thing here. We're going to get, let's find it here. Here's our control surface. I'm going to actually rotate that with pressing A to get it facing the right way. And then I'm actually going to click on the wing and move the wing, and it's going to move our control surface along with it. It's kind of like a parent-child thing. So it's going to give us that cool dihedral as well as giving that that fin in the right direction. We're going to add our canard, which is a weird word to say when you think about it. I'm going to press Shift and A, which is kind of lean us up just a little bit. It's going to give us a little bit of angle of attack that's going to help push the ship upwards. We're going to grab our landing gear. Put some landing gear on here. One thing that's kind of important to note is you want your front. Sometimes it's not always easy to do this, but if you can, put your front up above the back of the ship. Now you might say, well, why would I want that? And what it's going to do is it's kind of point your nose up. So when you get going, the wind is going to push your ship up in the air and help you get up into the air. Finally, we're going to add our Avionics Package. This is just going to keep us from crashing and burning in a horrible, fiery, Kerbal-filled mess. And yeah, nothing left but to see how our ship flies. Press T, hit our SAS, kind of locked in place. If you're not familiar with what this SAS does, it doesn't work the same way as the other SASs. Instead of saying, I want to travel in this direction, please keep me traveling in this direction, what it does is it actually... Take off. Excuse me. It actually keeps the ship pointing in a direction that is safe. So you can actually, you know, kind of roll the ship and turn it and things like that. You may notice on the roll that it's very quick. And that's kind of an issue. So what I like to do is I like to hit caps lock, which will actually give it a little bit of a slower roll. It's precision piloting is what it is. But we're going to go ahead and see about, well, let's get our landing gear up first of all. We're actually going to see if we can land this. And let's see if we can't do a tutorial on landing. So in one take, hopefully in one take, we'll go ahead and land this. Sometimes turning is a little difficult. Sometimes I like to tap F. You can see the SAS turning on and off right there. And what that's letting me do is just kind of turn the ship. It's not always easy to turn these things and not lose control. You can lose control and tumble out of the world pretty easily. You'll notice here the ship is trying to right itself continually, and that's a little bit of that dihedral, a little bit of the SAS, but also the dihedral. If I turn the SAS off, that dihedral, that V shape we produced, is actually kind of stabilizing us, which is a pretty cool feature. You can also do what's called anhedral. It's the exact opposite. It just basically, all right, we're going up more than I want. Excuse me. It will make your ship more unstable, which makes it more acrobatic, which may or may not be what you want to do. It's up to you. You see here we're traveling about 208 meters per second. Now this doesn't seem very fast, but you have to realize at about 345, give or take, 343, whatever, meters per second is the speed of sound. So we're traveling, close to 500 miles per hour? That's pretty fast when you think about it. Don't think that you're traveling slow by any means. I'm actually going to go ahead and power off just for a second, just to help us do this turn a little bit better. Tossing in a little bit of turning the SAS on and off a little bit there, helping us turn more. If you turn a little crazy, sometimes you find your ship flying out of control. And that's a sign that your ship may be a little unbalanced. Whoa! Such as that. We're going to give ourselves some power. I think we're actually wing stalling. Hold on. Oh, actually, it also doesn't help that our SAS isn't on. Alright, let's pull up before we crash into the sea. Anyways, as I was saying, it may be that your ship is unstable. I don't know actually how stable this ship is. And that dihedral is actually kind of messing with me a little bit, because it's always trying to correct itself more than I want it to. That's okay, though. That is alright. Anyways, what I was saying is your ship will kind of flip around, and depending on your altitude, if you're above 5,000 feet, it's very hard to correct from kind of like a crashing situation. Go ahead and put our gear down. And so you just kind of have to wait it out. Try to get yourself pointed in the direction you're traveling, and that's just going to help you get your ship oriented properly. If you're using an SAS, turn that on, obviously. Another important thing to note that I'm just I'm trying to give you guys like lots of little tips and helps and things like that, is to note that when you turn, don't use A and D so much. Make sure you're using your tilting to go into the turn. Because what will happen is if you use the A and D trying to turn left and right, you'll kind of have to fight against it. But if you're using, if you're using Q and E, I need to go down actually. Your ship will just kind of move that way, and then you'll kind of catch up to it. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's a lot more. It makes things quite a bit more simple. All right, we are actually coming in really hot. Oh, I actually forgot to turn my power off. All right, so our runway, we're running out of runway fast already. That's not a big deal. All right, lost our engine, not a big deal. Pressing B. B is for brakes. Got to be careful. Sometimes you can flip your ship over. You brake so hard. And that was pretty quick. We lost our engine. Not a big deal. Everything else is nice and safe. We came in way too fast. I should have turned my engine off. You can actually glide quite a ways. But anyways, that is a basic ship. Kind of give you some ideas. The only thing that I really didn't cover is something called trim. And you know what? We'll cover that with our next ship. For our next ship, I'm envisioning something more like an SR-71. Now, if you're not familiar with the SR-71, at the height of the Cold War, the CIA was in America, I don't know what their job is. They're international people. They deal with internationals. They wanted to spy on the Russians, the USSR, figure out what they were doing, what their military was doing. And they came up with this plane called the U-2, and it had really long, wide wings, flew very high. It was basically like a giant glider on the edge of space, and it worked out really well because you can't shoot missiles up that far and still hit something, and so they worked out quite well. However, eventually the Russians got kind of tired of that, and they figured out a way to shoot one down. And it's not very safe to put your men up in a plane on the edge of space over enemy territory that can now, you can be shot down. So that ended that, and suddenly we needed more information. Oops. On the Russians. We didn't have a way to do it, and so they came up with this idea to make a ship that would fly incredibly fast and incredibly high. I called it the SR-71 Blackbird, and it could fly at like Mach 3.5, no big deal. And so if ever an SR-71 was shot at, which they were actually frequently shot at, they would actually just accelerate faster than the rocket because, did I get a canard? Okay, I just want to make sure I got the canard on the other side there. Because basically they were so fast that they would detect the rocket being launched, and they would just go, okay, well let's floor it because we're fast. That the rocket was, or the plane was faster than a rocket, which is not an easy feat. Our SR-71, by the way, has an extra engine. The actual one only had two. Anyways, this ship here, we're going to design it to go as fast as we possibly can, and it's going to help us talk about some of the things that go on with the way the engines work. You notice I right-click on these a lot of times. You may notice I sometimes click on these and I look at the math things of this. By the way, if you've not heard this before, wow, that was wild. The game just crashed. I think it's because when I hit the settings, even though I just meant to add volume, I accidentally did that. So we'll actually resume flight. We'll probably end up crashing. Wow, that was weird. Game thing bounced. But we'll go ahead and do this. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Alright, let's crash the game again. You ready? Apply. Well, that actually crashed the game. It tried to reset in Fraps and it didn't get along very well. That's alright. We won't worry about the sound. It sounds really cool, by the way. If you haven't heard it, it sounds really cool. Probably be a little loud for recording anyway. Alright. We good? Wait for the game to load. Alright, here we go. Get things rolling. Full speed. Go ahead and if you look at this, this is a very important set of numbers right here. And I'm going to actually do a video on this in the future because there is a lot of important math. By the way, if you didn't know, there's a line. Actually, it's back there somewhere. There's a line that's like, hey, by the way, you should probably take off about now. But anyways, take my landing gear in. All my engines. Okay, taken from that one as well as that one. Okay. Hopefully these engines are going to work out right. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and deactivate that actually. That should properly balance the fuel, but I don't know. By the way, if you deactivate one of these two and they're mirrored, they'll both turn off. That way you don't have to worry about the ship flying around. But this kind of gives you information, and it's kind of hard to digest it all. Because it's sort of like in between. It's kind of hard to explain, and it all comes down to just a few numbers here. The optimal flow is the units of air, the amount of air coming in. I don't actually know what the proper technical term is, but they just use the letter U, right? So we'll call it units of air. I don't know if it's liters per second or whatever. Excuse me. And so this is the ideal amount. Well, what happens is when you're a little low toward the sea, you see we're at 20 or 2,000 meters. when you get at sea level, you actually have so much air that the engine will actually start to choke, and this intake power will turn to zero, and say too much air, we won't allow any extra air in there, and it kind of automatically adjusts. Okay, when you start seeing this number rising as it is now, it's saying, okay, there's not enough air. So we're going to actually start letting air in. It doesn't just naturally have enough air by the pressure. We're also going to let some air in. And so it's trying to keep it kind of near the optimal airflow, which is in this engine 60U. I think the other smaller engines is 200, which is more, but it's just different because you have less air up high as opposed to more air below. So they use more air, this uses less air because it's designed for higher atmospheres. But anyways, this intake power is going to keep going up and up and up, and this airflow here is going to stay around 60 until this intake hits about 150 units, whatever the intake number is. Excuse me. And the reason why that is you kind of, I'll explain this in a future video. I'm planning something pretty cool, I think. I think it's pretty cool. It'll be pretty math heavy, but it'll be cool. Basically, you need air and fuel to create thrust, to create fire, right? You need a combustible material and oxygen, and so you have to get those two balanced out well. If you don't balance them out properly, you'll have some issues, and you make yourself, sad. And that's why, like old cars, you're always tuning the carburetor because you got to fix that air and fuel mixture to get your optimal efficiency. This number, I believe, takes into account the ram drag, if you would, which is basically just drag on a ram, and the ram is the opening. It just takes into account drag, and so it's not a very useful number. So your ultimate goal is to try to keep this airflow fairly close to this number here. Now we're hitting it close to 150, and when we hit 150, we're actually heading straight up, but I don't want to quite head straight up. We had maybe it's a little more than that. What is the intake power? Is it 200? No, I guess I'm wrong. I know it's not fairly much farther. Actually, you're starting to see this number drop here, and it's because we're running out of air. We're about 10,000 meters. We're running out of air, and so we're getting less air into the engine. So this airflow is getting less and less efficient, and that's sort of a bad thing because when you start running lower than efficiency, you're not quite doing things as good. Oop, I don't want to be heading down. Alright, so you're not doing things quite as good as you could be. I'm actually going to enable these other engines here. And it's kind of tricky because the faster you go, the more air you get in, which is better. And you can see here actually our air intake power, our intake is actually closing off because we're going fast. We're actually shoving more air in there. I'm going to have a video explaining all this because it's fairly complicated, but we're also still going up, and so now it's got to open that intake up more and more. So it's it's kind of that balance, but the big thing to look for is this number right here, this airflow number. Excuse me. If this airflow number starts getting a little lower, you're going to start losing efficiency. You're going to start losing power. All right, we're back. We're going a bit faster here. We're actually losing speed. We're going to talk a little bit about this here. Got to get this is oh wait, I need to get more air in my engines. We're losing speed. Actually, we're getting speed still. Actually, it's so hard to tell how efficient your engine is working. If you lose too much air, your engines aren't powerful enough to push forward. If you get too high, whatnot. Anyways, just want to talk to you guys real quick about trim. Right now, my ship is actually trimmed in pretty good. Let me actually, needs a little trim down. Let me actually knock the trim out. I'll press Alt X, and that'll knock the trim down. And you'll see the ship kind of wants to rise up just a little bit. And that's not, I could constantly push down and adjust the ship. What I can do is I can also set trim. The way I do that is I press Alt. I'm going to press for down trim. I'm going to just steer my ship down, I'm just going to press W a few times. That's just set the trim down just a little bit. Let's see, is my ship rising anymore? A little bit. I'm going to knock it down just a little bit more. And it doesn't seem to be rising much anymore, and so it just helps me keep the ship kind of fairly level, which is nice. We're heading not quite Mach 2. We're just under Mach 2. We might need another engine or two, maybe kind of tweak a few power settings and things like that, or our airflow, figure out the best way. We probably could make it to Mach 2 in this. The situation is, oh, by the way, just on the trim, going back to trim real fast, if you didn't know, Alt-X will stop that, and you can trim up and trim down. I'm pretty sure you can trim rolls and things like that, just whatever you need. But anyways, this airflow, I usually try to keep it 45 to 55-ish, give or take. I don't know what the right thing is. I have my beefs, but that's okay. Anyways, you basically have to realize the faster you go, the more air, trim down a little bit, the more air you get into your engines, but the slower you go. And so it's kind of this balancing act where you go higher and faster and higher and faster and higher and faster. But if you go too fast without going too high, then it's not as helpful. And so you're always just kind of like, is what I'm doing increasing my speed? And you're just kind of going faster so you can go higher. And it's just balance and balance and balance, and you can keep going faster and faster and faster until you kind of run out of fuel. And we could probably easily take this over to, over Mach 2, which is about 700 meters per second, 670 meters per second, give or take. Which actually we're right there. So let's play the video. Let's run the video until we get there. Hopefully we can do okay. I can get this ship up that speed. But you just keep going faster and higher and faster and higher. And then if you want, one of the cool things you can actually do is you can actually toss a rocket maybe on here, rocket engine, rocket tank, fly that rocket tank up to this altitude. You're in such little, you got such little air up here that you need less rocket. Like this pole flies the rocket up, then you fly the rocket into orbit, and then you can fly home. Is the basic idea. So that's different ideas. But man, we're just right on the edge of it. It's hard to get a little bit more and a little bit more each time. Let's see here. Let's go. I'll go down a little bit, and you see we're going down a little bit, and that's actually going to increase our speed just because we're leveling out. But we also have to be careful not to. Oh, we're actually losing speed now because we got into too thick of air. Now we're going up again. We're still losing speed. We're going faster. It's so tricky at this edge. But it's pretty cool. Anyways, well, I was hoping to make it to. It's so hard. It's hoping to make it to Mach 2. We're pretty close to Mach 2. But we're gonna end the video here just because I want to render it before I fall asleep. It's kind of getting late. Had a long day, but I want to let you guys know about all the different things going on in the space planes. We're gonna have more videos coming up on. We're gonna have an advanced Minmus landing. It's late. A high quality Minmus landing video in the future. Looked at for that in a week or two. We're gonna look for we're gonna do a shuttle design in the future, which will be a lot of fun. And we're gonna do a video on actually how how jet engines work. And who knows, maybe we'll actually hit that that beautiful 670 meters per second. Hey, look, there it is. Mach 2. Cool beans. Alright, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time in future videos. Bye.